Ho ho ho! Welcome to Galactic Island. This is episode 3, and this is our Halloween vlog. Chud let me borrow his mask, so just so y'all know, I'm not the real Chud. I'm just impersonating Chud. So I hope you enjoyed that little intro. This is Webcap Drew, and welcome back to another exciting adventure with Webcap Drew and Vlogcast Island, or Galactic Island as we like to call it around the Pyre headquarters. Well, I suppose it's time for EP 3. That's right. And I am on hold. Don't you love it, being on hold? Gotta say happy Halloween. It can be a nightmare going through those teleprompters. We've all been there. And then you get put on hold for a considerable amount of time. So I thought, you know what? I will go ahead and get this EP started. Galactic Island. Welcome back. Last week, we discussed Atlas AI, or 3i Atlas, I should say. What do you think about it? It seems pretty wild. It's getting closer, and people are kind of getting a little bit edgy about it. I think it's a pretty much kind of status quo for every time we have a near-Earth comet. So that was a fun thing to talk about and see how it's progressing. As our move's progressing, you can see all the mess behind me. The boxes. Can I get over there and show? Oh, my video shut off there. Yeah, so there's a stack of boxes for moving. That's another nightmare, is moving. Everybody's has to move probably at least once in their lifetime. Not any fun. But what is fun is doing a podcast. Or actually, this is a vlog. I just wrote a blog the other day. I haven't written a blog in a while. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I did one on social media for a while about heavy metal. But my vlog, the difference between a vlog and a podcast is that you're on video. So yeah, now this vlog, I don't really know that there's much of a difference really, besides one's audio and you don't have any pictures. So I figured, well, I'm gonna go ahead and kill some time. And Halloween is probably my favorite holiday of the year. I think a lot of people like Halloween. And I was thinking, well, what am I going to discuss? Because, you know, you're supposed to talk about scary stuff. And yeah, I mean, you know, I got all kinds of stories we can do about haunted houses and movies and all the good stuff and eating candy and all that fun Halloween tradition. But I was thinking, you know, I have to come up with a story for it because, you know, it's got to be kind of unique to my show. So I started thinking about this. Well, it's been hard because I don't like to beat up on people on the internet. You know, like I used to do a show called Solutions for Bonehead Politics, and I discussed politics. So I did like let the politicians have it. That was kind of fun, actually, especially if you've ever been aggravated with your government or your administration. But I try to keep in the middle and independent, so, you know, I wouldn't go too far one way or the other, because I'm a promotions host and you don't want to turn people off. But when we got into this deal with Ford Motor Company in our CEO's car, it turned into a nightmare. Like, I have never seen worse customer service in my life in dealing with an issue. I'm disgusted with them. I have never had to hire an attorney to sue a business before. And we actually have an attorney and been waiting 2 years to get that. They screwed us out of almost $5,000. And that's not including probably all the ride hailing and the loss of time, being late for work and all those things. It was a real nightmare, man. It was a Halloween nightmare. A Halloween nightmare. So I'm not very happy with them. And I think that was probably going to be like, I definitely want to make a point out of that in this episode. I know that, you know, when you go to the mechanic, sometimes you're going to deal with issues. Everybody's had a lemon before, and, you know, it makes it hard when, you know, you're counting on your car. But they literally caused damage to our car. And then the guy wanted to argue with me on the phone. I told him, I said, it's a radiator leak. Let me know how much it's going to be. He said, it's not my radiator. I said, what do you mean? I poured water into it and watched it run out into the parking lot. The water from underneath the car. Oh, it's not your radiator. And then a day later, I get a call that the car's overheated on the side of the road. And I have to go down there and pick it up. And it's the radiator's blown up or whatever. So, you know, then we had to have it towed again. So I wanted to say happy Halloween and share my nightmare story with you, because Ford deserves to have their nose smeared in a little bit, because I can't believe, like, businesses nowadays, you know, and I seen their CEO online, because I was trying to figure out, you know, what is going on with this company. Why have they, like, you know, this wasn't just one issue. This was like 3 or 4 issues. The car had broken down 2 times because of what they did to the car, or what they didn't do to the car. And then when they did do something to the car, they caused some kind of negligent thing for the car to break down. Very upsetting. I'm disgusted with them. And I am just like, you know, when you're trying to deal with that, and you're thinking about the holiday season, and then you're waiting to get your money back, that's the worst kind of nightmare you can have. That's the scariest kind of story there is to tell. Period. Without a doubt. So yeah, their CEOs trying to blame it on their employees. They don't have enough employees. But, you know, that's not my problem. You know, hey, look, if you're having employee problems, you don't pass that along to the customer. And the customer, you should always, back when I was, you know, become on my own and having to do things where I had to, you know, pay for all my own stuff. I didn't live in my parents' house no more. I was an adult. I was 18 years old. I moved out when I graduated high school. First thing, I was gone, lickety split. I was a beach bum for sure then. But once that happened, I had to learn how businesses worked and stuff, because I had to learn all that, how to deal with my stuff and everything. And back then, which was a long time ago, because now I'm old, you can see I got a little gray scruffles right there. Yeah, back then, you know, the customer was always right. So when I'm talking to the attorney, he's telling me that the customer isn't right because the judges in Florida don't care. They look out for big businesses. I'm not making this up. And I'm like thinking and scratching my head going, this don't sound right. This is like not the way things are supposed to work. You know, and maybe if it's one instance, you can let it go. And, you know, if you're trying, especially with a dealership, because you go to a new car dealership for their service department, because you know that they know that brand of car. They sold that car to her, and now they can't fix it. And it's pitiful. Ford is a pitiful, sorry excuse for what was once. It's a thing of the past, and I think that their CEO needs to take a pay cut, because he's obviously getting paid way too much money to blame things on his employees. And I'm like one of those people where, you know, I have my own business. Obviously, when you're a content creator, you own your own business. So you have to deal with these things as they come and go with your business. Sometimes you have problems, and you have high and low points, and a lot more low points probably than high points when you have your own business. But, you know, he's making millions and millions of dollars a year to blame everything on his mechanics. I worked in the dealership. The mechanics do work hard for their money. So I'm not buying that. I just think that there's a lot of incompetence. And when you have the wrong people, or you have a problem, you need to, like, cut it out and get rid of it, and, you know, pay your people right so they'll do the job right. And, you know, so, you know, that's something to remember, that if you go to a new car dealership, you are expecting to pay more. than if you went down to, John's, mechanic shop. It's different because, you don't have the same expectations like warranties or that model that you're taking to them to specifically fix. You're expecting to pay more money. And when you do that, you expect to have the best service. And Ford Motor Company does not do that. And if you go to Ford and they do that to you, just remember, you can sue them. You can take them to small claims court, and definitely make sure to let them know online you're not happy with the service if they do that to you, because it's not right. It's fraud and negligence. And we're lucky that that car didn't cause someone to get hurt, because it broke down literally broke down on top of the train tracks. That truthfully broke down on top of the train tracks. Like, how scary is that? So I don't know what they're smoking over there. Their drugs, man, are not doing them any good. So maybe Ford needs to reinstate like some kind of drug testing, or maybe just go in there and start clean house. But that's the truth, and that's my nightmare for today. And the other nightmare is that I'm sitting here still. I think I've been on hold. I was on hold for 15 minutes before I started this part of episode. I think it's episode 3 we're on right now. But also the talk of Halloween. What's so fun about Halloween is you get to tell spooky stories. So I was thinking about this because, I watch a lot of ghost hunters, ghost adventures. I used to watch those shows back when I had time to do that. So probably one of my more let's get on story. I was thinking, I grew up in the church. So when you think of church, you don't think of haunted. They don't even the church I went to, they don't really even celebrate Halloween. They have maybe a festival, fall festival or something like that. But I was thinking about this, and I'm like, yeah, man, I remember because my father was the head dude in the church. So I remember being a little kid, and we would, as kids, you get very, you like to sneak around, you like to investigate things, and maybe go into places where you're not supposed to be in. And I remember being in that church all the time growing up, because I grew up in the church. Like, when I say grew up in church, I mean I was there 3-4 times a week. So, there was thankfully other children, or I think,
hey
there we go.
Drew from Midnight.
All right, so, that no more groovy music for the background there. So thankfully though, I got that done. One thing under the water under the bridge there. But yeah, back to my story about haunted churches. Like, people don't think about churches as being haunted. And so here's my experience. So growing up in there in the church, I was always there a lot of times. Sometimes I might be there for I was required to go 3 to 4 times a week sometimes. Usually it was 3 times a week, but, a lot of times I'd have to go with my dad just because maybe, maybe he needed my help, or who knows what, right? That's what you're doing when you're a kid. So sometimes I would be in there just because it was a big church, the one that I'm talking about. So we'd be in there running around as kids and kind of being in places maybe we weren't supposed to be. But I can remember feeling like something was watching me. And every time we would go into this one part of the church, I always felt that there was something there. Maybe it was because, we were kids and we were sneaking around and, taking cookies out of the pantry and getting into the stuff we weren't supposed to be getting into, playing in the areas maybe they wouldn't have wanted us to be playing in. But regardless, I remember that feeling. And I remember I wouldn't go in there by myself into this one area, and it was always very creepy. And so, I remember doing a while back, I had done a show, and we were discussing Bigfoot. And so I when my parents had finally moved, and we had moved away from that church, I remember being somewhere and having an experience where I felt like, I was being watched or something in the same way. So But whenever people say that about, like, I felt like I was being watched, that there's a sensation that you get, like, that you don't get from anything else, like where it's really quiet and still, and you can look all around, not see anything moving, but you feel like something's there. Now, I don't know if that's paranoia. I don't know if there's like a feeling of heightened awareness, or sixth sense, as some people call it. But I never felt like it was like a malevolent spirit. But I think if you think about it, like churches, like some people might go and attend that church for a whole big part of their life, or maybe their entire life, So they do have history in them. People get married, they have funerals in them. So it would be a place that could have some of that residual energy. And if you believe in that kind of stuff, who knows? Maybe it was. Maybe there was, something creeping around watching us, or maybe it was. What are those kids up to? I don't know. I don't know if I believe in any of that stuff or not, but it's true. I did experience that, and I wanted to share that because when I thought of my experience in the woods and what had happened to me in that story, how I had told that story, I had gone back, and in that area as a kid growing up, when we'd be out there in the woods sometimes, you would get that sensation, like the woods would get real quiet and things would just go dead silent. And as kids, when we would be getting really far out into the woods, you had to be careful you didn't get lost. You could get lost out there. And where I grew up, there was a lot of really cool places to explore. So when we would get real far out there and that would happen, we would get scared that there was like something out there with us watching us. And like, I think a lot of times too, things like that can be related to, maybe the Native Americans. Maybe they had traditional grounds in that area. I've had experiences with that. I've experienced paranormal stuff before. So I do think it's a real energy. And I think it's just like a repeating of the past, maybe. Like, kind of like, a movie kind of playing over and over again. I do think it's real. And so when it comes to that stuff, like, I lived in a house that kind of had like it wasn't a malevolent haunting either, but I remember my mother had experienced something one time and she asked me about it, and we both we looked at each other like we were both freaked out that we both had heard the same thing. So I think when somebody else verifies it, or if you're kids and you're, out in the woods and you're like, you get freaked out, like, there is something that causes that, without a doubt. I think there's some kind of energy that awakens something in you. And maybe it could just be like our defense mechanisms as humans, our biochemistry that makes us self-aware. But I do think there's energies that can affect you and make you feel that presence, whatever it might be. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. And if you've ever lived in a haunted house, the haunted house that I lived in, I remember when my parents would be away, we had a pool table in the basement. So that was where we all hung out, my friends and stuff. We'd hang out down there and shoot pool, throw darts. And I would not go down there. Even when I was a teenager, like getting, ready to graduate high school, I wouldn't go down there if nobody wasn't. If I had to go down there and get something, I'd go down there, get it, and then go right back up the stairs, because it was creepy. I felt like it was an old house, and there was definitely like a feeling of like, I think that it was actually more of that fact that the house was so old that it was just a creepy feeling house, like, because of the old haunted feeling part. But like I said, we did experience stuff there. My sister, she experienced something there one time. So, and one of my friends was with her when they experienced that. And so that was kind of exciting because they were totally freaked out. And I was like, I was trying to get them to calm down. And, if when two girls are that young and they're freaked out about something haunted It's kind of a very interesting at that age. So I know that the house was, and I've experienced one or two other things in other houses that, like, well, I had a dog that would every once in a while, and she was a super smart dog, one of the smartest dogs I ever had. She would just stop and look at the doorway, and her hair would go up on the back of her neck. She had short hair, big dog, guard dog. I trained her to be a guard dog, and her hair would go up, and she would just start. She would growl, a low growl, but she wouldn't move, and she would just be. And she would do that at two different doors in the house. So I don't know if it's something with her vision, the way dogs see different than us. Maybe she was seeing, like, could have been something she thought was there. Maybe it wasn't. But there was a history to that house, though, where something malevolent did happen. Nothing malevolent happen when I was there, but not in the house, but around, something to do with the house. So we felt like that there was something there, because we had opened the attic up one time, and it was like a pop and a blue light. So I don't know if it was like a static electricity, but we both saw it, and I'm like, what was that? Like, that's probably not something that you want happening in your attic, like a blue light exploding or whatever it was. So that was pretty freaky. Like, I never was scared in that house, though, because the house was small, so I didn't feel like small houses could be haunted, but there was something there. There was energy there, and it was something, I think, that was related to a story around the history of the house, but it was not something that happened inside the house, but it did have some kind of weird stuff going on in it. So I've experienced a few things, creepy things, but, as far as, like, the biggest paranormal thing I've ever experienced was not related to ghosts. And I mean, I believe in energy. I believe in that kind of, spirit energy. I believe it's real. But I think a lot of times, too, it's just stuff that maybe we do hype up on ourselves. Because if you're a little kid and you're running around, you're typically going to, if you're in a dark, old, scary church all by yourself, like, maybe one or two other people, 3, 4 people even, and they're in a different part. It gets scary because you're heightened awareness. But, you never know. Spooky Halloween. I was going to invite Chud to be on, but I was so angry, I figured, you know what? Maybe my story would be good enough just to go ahead and make that the story for the Halloween episode. But I was thinking, when I was going to announce the music, that I have, which is really weird, because if you think about now what they do with EVPs when they're investigating like haunted places, and they're trying to find that energy, when I was played in a band in high school, played in a rock band too, played in all kinds of bands, but regardless, we had a space where we would set up in the house that I was talking about, the one where the basement was creepy, right? Well, there was a back room in the house, and we were allowed to play music back there. And so one of me and my friends were back there, and I was showing this playing something on the amplifier. It was probably the guitar, or bass, or electric, I don't know. But I thought, as we were playing, I turned around. I was like, I thought I heard something, and so I went to go adjust something on the speaker, and a voice came through the speaker. I kid you not, it said some garbled gibberish. It was really loud, and it was loud, like, whatever I was playing. When I turned around, it was louder than basically what I was playing. So it was almost like it kind of like shouted at us. And me and my friend, I looked at him because I didn't know what to think it was, right? And I was kind of freaked out. And I'm like, he looked at me, and I think he didn't know what to think, because it could have been some weird frequency that just came through, but I don't know. It was very weird. Regardless, that really happened. And I think introducing the song, so really happened. A lot of freaky stuff on Halloween happens, but those are my stories, and I hope you liked them. And we're gonna announce this next one off my Hail to the Thief album. I hope you enjoy it. A couple of songs I got on there. Sometimes I write stuff that is like horror related. Like right now, I just advertised the Billions of Devil Faces. I believe that's on my Hail to the Thief album. So I do have a lot of songs that I write that are about that sort of thing. But if you get a chance, check out my Bandcamp page. That's where my whole portfolio is, all my albums. And I hope you like it. And I'll see you on the next episode. This is Web Captain Drew, over and out. Goodbye. Live on the telly, there's something interesting to see. Live on the telly, there's something interesting to see. I've seen it all, what else more could there be? I've seen it all, what else more could there be? Customized to your viewing via the internet. Customized to your viewing needs. Was there a shootout? Was there a shootout? Turn the channel to a friendly looking fellow. Turn the channel to a friendly looking fellow. Crucifix for $25. Sells you a crucifix for $25. Here's a pretty lady to see. Here's a pretty lady to buy these diamonds. She'll what you to buy these diamonds. Social rhetoric and profiles. Social rhetoric and profiles. Real right for all. Violence and action of real right for all. Don't comedy rewritten 50,000 times over and over. Don't comedy rewritten 50,000 times over and over. Got something fuck you up there. And the occasional train wreck something fuck you up there. And the occasional train wreck. Newspapers, yes, I can't believe. Newspapers, yes, I can't believe. Flip on the telly, there's something you need to see. Flip on the telly, there's something you need. I've seen it all. What else more could there be? I've seen it all. What else more could there be? Right? That's my idea of right. That's my idea of on the telly, there's something interesting. On the telly, there's something interesting. I've seen it all. Where else could there be? I've seen it all. Where else could there be? You can customize it to your views. Try it. You can customize it to your views. You got little Bigfoot UFOs and the occasional. You got little Bigfoot UFOs and the occasional train wreck.